Hello everyone and welcome to another interview with the Canadian Science and Policy Conference for 2018. I'm joined today by Audrey Mascarenhas from Questor, and thank you very much for joining me today and taking the time for this. So if we can start off, just if you could tell me a little bit about your general kind of background and your work you do with Questor, and what kind of makes your position unique in terms of science policy.
Okay, so I've lived in Canada for about 40 years. I had a chance to immigrate from Kenya, and it's been a great privilege to be here because I've had a chance to get an amazing education. I have a Bachelor in Chemical Engineering from the University of Toronto. I have a Master's in Petroleum. I've had an amazing career in oil and gas for the first 18 years, and I've been running Questor, a clean technology company, for the last 19. And what Questor does very quickly is we're a technology company that has patented technology that allows us to cleanly deal with waste gas and have an impact not only on air quality but GHG emissions and quality of life and social license with communities. We're hitting it out of the park around the world. We've changed the basin in Colorado, and in the last year have grown revenue by over 400%. And the sad part, I think, is it's a good thing, but 98% of our revenue is now outside of Canada.
All right.
And that's where our growth is happening. So how do we change that narrative? Because my company isn't unique in that. 100 of us were in Ottawa 2 weeks ago with Jim Basili, talking about how all of us were growing outside of Canada, we're scaling up outside of Canada, we're finding our funding outside of Canada. And as a result, not necessarily as we scale up and grow, staying in Canada.
Right. So then in that case, it's obviously a very common thing to be moving outside of Canada and going where the business is, but is that something fairly unique to your sector, do you think? And is that something unique to Questor as a whole and something that you'd be looking to bring back in, or is it just kind of the general growth you find?
I think it's very specific to technology. The world is changing and technology is changing so rapidly. And creating the right atmosphere for adoption and growing companies is so important. And of course, we've been hearing today how Canada's falling behind in a whole bunch of places. And one of the reasons I agreed to chair the strategy table for clean tech was because I do passionately care about Canada. And I want this to be a great place that creates great jobs for my kids and their kids. And because we don't often get that right, and if technology companies like mine are scaling up and growing outside of Canada, that's a problem for Canada.
Right.
It's not bad that I export because Canada's a pretty small market, and so exporting and creating revenue outside is okay, so long as I can continue to grow and create a company in Canada.
Right, okay, that makes sense. So in terms of then kind of a science policy approach and within the Canadian side, what do you see as the kind of biggest areas of growth, and how do you see yourself in terms of a science policy advocate or kind of voice?
So I think we need to start putting science and business principles into our policy making. So I think government has the right intention. I think we're realizing that we have a problem. That's why the economic strategy tables got formed. So now it's how do we start to really think strategically? And at the strategy tables, and all of them really adopt this as one of our signature initiatives, it was the concept of own the podium.
Right.
What we were really trying to say there was you got to start to be strategic. Focus on the companies that you can help accelerate. So if you think about own the podium and the race list, you don't look and say, okay, I've got to help the ones at the bottom of the list because they're kind of struggling. You look and say, who's got a 95% chance of getting the gold medal? And what do I need to help them make sure that they are successful at getting the gold medal? Because at the end of the day, everyone wins when we build successful companies within. And I'm not necessarily talking about money. I'm talking about being strategic and figuring out what would it take to make sure they get the gold medal. If we continue to sprinkle fairy dust over everything, we're actually not generating the greatest return on that investment, and we're not really being strategic. The rest of the world's being strategic. The reason that these amazing technology companies are getting supported outside of Canada is the rest of the world's thinking strategically. They're looking for the companies that are 95% there and close to getting that gold medal, and they're stealing them from Canada. So I think it's important that we start to nurture these gazelles and truly help them shine and grow.
Right, and do so at home.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that then, you kind of touched on a couple of the major ideas that came up during your most recent panel on commercializing innovation in Canada. And so what do you kind of see as, if there was one takeaway message from that panel, what do you think that could really be?
We have an amazing country. We've got amazing resources. We have an amazing education system. If we don't start to look at this strategically and get very focused on wanting to change our culture and wanting to win, we will lose all the investment we've made. And for example, if all we focus on and don't create a healthy innovation ecosystem and all we focus on is startups, what we're doing right now is de-risking technologies, and when we don't scale them up and the rest of the world picks these companies up, Canada is actually subsidizing the rest of the world's GDP growth. That's why this is so important. This is a dialogue that is so important to have, and we need to change this culture and start to think about wanting to win and being okay with winning. It's not very Canadian, I know, but we have to be comfortable with saying, yeah, we want to win. We want to own that podium, and I think that's a tough culture change.
Certainly so.
Yeah.
So then the Canadian Science and Policy Conference as a whole does have a main goal of really being a kind of forum for these discussions. So in your opinion then, having this ability to bring together different people from different backgrounds, different fields, what do you see as kind of the major benefit of the CSPC and really having that?
I think it plays a very strong role in trying to make sure we get a good, full innovation ecosystem. It's not just universities and R&D. There's a piece in there on startups and incubators. Then there's commercialization, and there's scale-up. So if we can bring some solid thought leadership to creating a healthy, full innovation ecosystem, and at the end of the day, it's about analysis, it's about science, bringing the data to the table and making intelligent decisions. That really is the role that I see us doing. And at the end of the day, policy and making sure you put in good policy ensures that you end up reaching the goal that you're trying to achieve.
And having those winners. Certainly.
Exactly, and owning the podium,
and owning
right?
the podium,
yes.
Certainly so.
Yes.
Great. Well, to wrap up then, and kind of a last comment, is there anywhere that our viewers could go online to find a little bit about your work or with Questor?
Okay, so as Questor, we've got a website, www.questortech.com. We're a public company, so we're listed on the Venture Exchange under the ticker symbol QST. Had phenomenal growth in our share price. In addition, some of the thoughts that I've talked about, I've had the opportunity to chair the Clean Tech Strategy Table for the last 6 months. And it has been a wonderful experience. I had an amazing table of other CEOs around me. And so I'd encourage you to go to Industry Canada's website and take a look at our report, and would very much welcome comments and feedback. But we talk a lot there about owning the podium.
Excellent. Well, that's great to hear, and a lot of more opportunities to find out more.
Okay.
I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me today. It's been very interesting, and your panel was incredibly interesting and stimulating. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the
My
conference.
pleasure. Thank you.